Thank you, guys.
Hello, so I am going to introduce our keynote speaker, Stefanie Rivera. Stefanie is the Director of Client Services since 2015 at the Sylvia Rivera Law Project. Stefanie has played a pivotal role in SRLP's development. She helped found the Prisoner Pimp Out Project while working as a former Prisoner Rights Intern at the Sylvia Rivera Law Project. She is a noted speaker on issues of trans liberation and abolition. Stefanie is one of the founding members of FIERCE and has received awards from the TransLatina Network and Black Transwomen, Inc. Stefanie has also been featured in the film Fenced Out, the book on Christopher Street Transgender Stories, and an artist Micah Bazant's Trans Life and Liberation series. So it's my honor to introduce my friend and our keynote speaker, Stefanie Rivera.
I just want to thank all of you for having me. I feel very privileged and honored to be here today. I apologize, I prefer to be sitting down because I have some sciatica issues, so that's what 40 looks like for this one over here. No, but I don't really know where to start other than to say that I think, you know, Stonewall 50, to me, what it represents is that we have been able to kind of push the needle forward as far as like what things look like. I still recount watching TV as a child and not really fully understanding when like the AIDS epidemic was going on, and the Ronald Reagan administration, the George Bush, the original George Bush administration, and their handling of the crisis, and ACT UP at the time. And I remember seeing the footage when they were trying to throw the body over the gate of the White House, and so I actually still remember that. And the thing that I try to like highlight and focus is that while yes, there is pride, there isn't pride for all of us, because to your point, Jared, a lot of trans women of color are not seen for some reason. We're not even on the back seat of the bus. We're trying to play catch up running after the bus. We have become quite accustomed to kind of being left kind of in the background. One of the points that I always make when I do try to speak is that there was a event where the White House under the Obama administration had opened up to the LGBT community, and a trans woman of color by the name of Genesette Gutierrez tried to name the plights of trans undocumented folks while in ICE detention, and a lot of the cis LGBT folks kind of tried to drown her out by shushing her, and eventually she was escorted off the grounds. And so for me, I still think that, I believe that there's a lot more work to be done. And what I mean by that, it's like, it's not just sharing posts, you know. I still remember a time when activism was about rolling up your sleeves and doing something more than just sharing something on social media. I love the fact that you can utilize social media, but I think it's also a double-edged sword. It's also paved the way for, you know, like new brand of activists that I tend to have some kind of issues with. I want folks who are really going to be about it versus giving a bunch of lip service. And so when it comes to TWOC, trans women of color, primarily Black trans women, we need to be able to center and uplift them. We need to be able to offer apprenticeships or internships that will eventually lead to some sort of scaling up the ladder that will eventually lead to being able to access employment, be able to access proper medical care. And Sylvia Rivera Law Project did that for me in a lot of ways. I was someone who was formerly incarcerated for 3.5 years. I personally knew Sylvia Rivera. She was someone, along with the late Bob Kohler, gay rights activist, who at the time in my youth scrambled to bail me out of Rikers Island, and I had no idea why. And I never knew how big of a change. Crossing paths with these folks was going to like impact me. While I was out on bail fighting my case, this young attorney, babyface attorney by the name of Dean Spade, decided he wanted to take up my cause. And I was like, well, I already have an attorney, what do I need you for? But it, you know, it was just very, it shaped the rest of my life. I truly don't believe that I would have made it to 40 years old had it not been for these different key players who decided to give this person a shot. I don't think I would have made it to 40 had it not been for them. A high school dropout, I'm someone who was in foster care and was in special ed and was homeless out on downtown LA Skid Row with a shopping cart. Like, I was someone who, by all standards, was kind of a statistic, and I was able to kind of break through those barriers and be able to provide so much more back to my community. I hope to be able to continue to do more with my positionality and where as far as I've come. But you know, a lot of this work cannot be done alone. We need the assistance of other people, and to be able to kind of branch together and set some of our differences aside and be able to kind of like really, you know, come together in a way that's going to truly make a difference. Especially that call from me to a lot of different organizations that claim that they do a lot of the work on behalf of a community, and a lot of the times really just tokenize us, which is really sad, and I'm hoping that eventually that will change. I also am honored to have been part of this film. I remember when Tourmaline would tell me off and on that she wanted to do this film, and you know, sometimes in community you just hear certain things, so you just kind of wave it off, like, yeah, you want to kind of do another film or whatever. And then I saw that she kind of was being for real, and I was just like, oh shit, like, I think she's really excited, you know? And so I'm like really proud of her. Like, I've seen her kind of go through this metamorphosis and turn from this caterpillar into this butterfly, this very beautiful butterfly. And my amazing SRLP family, all the way from Dean Spade to the original attorneys that were at SRLP, from Rage Kidby, who is also one of the other locations on the live feed. We had Alicia Williams, we had Alana Redfield, Pooja Gahi, Gabriel Arcus, to name a few. But all those people truly, in my eyes, really kind of helped to kind of set the precedent and really lay down the groundwork to really kind of shape and mold what this type of work looks like for somebody like myself. And so I am honored and thankful to be here. I don't know what else I can kind of provide or contribute, but if you would like to know more about the work that we do at the Sylvia Rivera Law Project, I would urge you to visit srlp.org. If you feel that you would like to donate, we are on the cusp of Stonewall 50. It would be very much, you know. And so with that, I thank you guys. I really am honored to be here. Thank you.
So we're gonna move into Q&A, and I'm just gonna sit up here and facilitate the questions. So, any questions?
So you talked about how trans folks aren't oftentimes really centered in a lot of LGBTQ discussions. Recently, the state's LGBTQ priorities agenda for the year included surrogacy, and the gay and trans panic defense, but there were certainly a lot of bills I know Sylvia Rivera Law Project was pushing, around, particularly to decriminalize loitering for the purpose of prostitution, which is really just used as a way of preventing trans folks from being able to exist in public spaces. So given the state, not to put you in an awkward position, but given the state and quite frankly a lot of LGBTQ groups, erasure of trans experience, how does that make people at SRLP feel? and what is the organization really doing to make sure that that those voices are heard, and what can we do as an organization to help?
I mean, SRLP has pretty much been kind of like at the forefront of a lot of these different issues. Some people might sometimes be surprised that SRLP might not necessarily, stand behind certain things that are being pushed, like wanting to put somebody in prison for hate crime. And it's not to say that we don't believe that people should be held accountable, but we don't believe in incarceration. We are an abolitionist-based organization. We don't feel that, while we don't have a direct, clear answer as to what that accountability piece would look like, we also don't believe in assisting the state that is more vested in disposing of Black and brown people, and I mean the numbers speak for themselves. So in that regard, and so I'm someone who was incarcerated for 3.5 years. Putting someone away behind bars doesn't necessarily remove the fact that there's still, and unfortunately, just to put it in context for folks that don't know, trans people are often put into prisons that are, if you were born with whatever the gender is assigned to you, then that's the prison that you're going to go to. And so in my case, I was in a men's prison, and it was one of the most horrible, dehumanizing, and I don't wish that upon anyone. But I'm trying to remember some of the other questions, but as far as the panic events, I think about that. You were also mentioning what else? I'm sorry. With that, we were working really hard with trying to, because back in the days, there was folks that were, there was the NYPD who was utilizing this thing of, well, if you have safer sex kits on you, whether they were condoms or whatever, lube, they would use that as supposed evidence for sex work. And so they were nabbing a lot of folks and throwing them behind bars. And so this was becoming an issue. This was an issue even back when I was kind of down and out. And so we really kind of helped ensure that that's a thing of the past and will no longer be something that is being utilized as a means to try to just frivolously arrest someone.
That kind of answered my question. When I got out of undergrad back in the 80s, I was a social worker in a New Jersey state prison, and I still remember Cherry Ann, who was, forgive me if I don't use it right, but she was transitioning, is that what I said? She was going through there, but she still had a, male part, so they put her in prison there, and she had a horrible, horrible time and ultimately committed suicide, so I was glad you addressed that. So is there any legislation, any work to move toward changing that law? Is there anybody advocating for that people be put in the proper institution?
So SRLP is currently working on trying to ensure that people are that identify as a certain gender, that they are put into a certain facility. That is something that's still in the works. Currently, SRLP does work with the New York City jails. They have a THU unit, which we've been kind of closely in conjunction working with to ensure that while, obviously we're not at this place where we can totally dismantle the prison industrial complex, that we can at least ensure that folks from our community are going to be protected and safe, which is hard. It's an uphill battle because we can't always depend on folks that are employed by these different institutions to adhere to some of their own policies. You're always going to have someone who's kind of abusing some of their powers and so on. As far as the legislation piece, I'm not too sure, so I'm gonna honestly say I don't know. But what I do know is that SRLP is working broadly in ensuring that there are certain types of changes.
So can you explain the concept of trans family and how we as advocates can use trans families as a resource for our transgender clients?
I mean, I would say like in my case, I have very few family that are supportive of me. I can very openly say that. When you have family members who are actually very supportive, which is kind of a rare thing, but I'm hoping that with time and with more visibility that will kind of continue to change. Utilize that as a means or an asset in whatever capacity. I think the folks that I get concerned about are the ones that don't have that familial support and that will require like additional assistance. I'm not sure if I really understood the question, but I'm answering it as
Well, certain transgender clients that I've worked with have talked about having a family that is not a blood family, as a transgender family. And it's been challenging for us to utilize them as a resource because they are not legally family.
Got it. I mean, the ways that I remember, like the one thing I like about New York City is that it's a hub of different networks. So like, even before I even really realized that, at least in my situation, my family had kind of chosen me. Like that was what bailed me out. So I would, okay, like for instance, Layleen Polanco died behind bars because she couldn't pay $500 bail. That should have never happened. And that should have never happened, and it happened kind of on our watch. That's the way that I think about it. And it's very, you know, I think in situations like that, when we become aware that someone from our community is behind bars and for something as petty as a prostitution charge or something of that nature, like we should be trying to create some sort of networks where we can like provide bail and get them out, allow them to be able to fight the case from the outside and remedy that situation. And then I would just try to like plug other people in and loop them in as best as possible to ensure that we're properly monitoring and protecting our people.
We're going to ask if we have anybody at the other sites who has any questions.
Does anyone in the other sites have? If you raise your hand, we'll unmute you.
No
Power
questions.
over here. Unmute. Racing too.
So I have a question. So kind of to Lou's point, or building on that, there's a lot of different like GoFundMe pages that are getting set up, and Black trans women and other trans women of color setting up funds where people can donate directly to them, so that money and resources are not always mediated through some of these big kind of brand name LGBT groups, and actually making sure money gets directly to the people who need it. What are your thoughts on that, and are there any kind of sites or networks that you would recommend that we support?
I'm not sure of any sites, I'm gonna be honest. I'm sorry if I'm like giving a lot of I don't know answers. I just like to be very straight up with that. As far as like funneling money is like, I feel like if you want to plug a trans woman of color to do a speaking engagement and speak about their lived experience versus just getting someone with academia who's going to speak about what they think they know about our situation, is to kind of help, you know, make sure like you're properly compensating the person for their time, because it is kind of, I've been able to kind of harness and master being able to speak a little bit better in public, but it doesn't make it any less challenging or hard, because there are times that I have to relive and rethink about my experience as well behind bars. There are times that I have to relive the countless friends that I have had who have been murdered as a result of them being trans, that are still cold cases, both in New York and Los Angeles, that you don't hear about on the media. And so when I think about those types of things, it's like, how are we properly ensuring that our folks are seen and heard in a way that's not just like some sort of a puppet show. Like I want it to be more authentic, if that makes any sense.
Can you talk about Trans Day of Action tomorrow?
So Trans Day of Action is an event that happens right before Gay Pride, and it's basically just an event that we have to just highlight and call attention to the plights of trans people, and we do that every year. We do it, normally it used to be held at the Christopher Street Piers, but over time it's changed, so now they have it over at Washington Square Park. We meet there and then we march through the streets and we come together as one community kind of, and if you are interested and would like to show support, then I would urge you to do that. That is done in conjunction with Audre Lorde Project and other like allied organizations. And it's an event that is very near and dear to my heart because it's my sister, who's also trans-identified, works for Latino Commission on AIDS. She used to formerly work for Gay Men's Health Crisis and used to, Audre Lorde Project. And so she used to head the Transitive Action marches here in New York. And so I think it's something that's very important. A lot of people still don't really know much about trans anything. So I think any type of attention and focus and awareness that we can bring out to the masses is actually a good thing.
Well, I think that you have mastered the art of public speaking. And so we really thank you so much for coming today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really wanted to, on behalf of all of the Legal Aid Society, I wanted to thank you. Not on camera. Not on camera.
Now you are.
Okay. I really want to thank you for coming and sharing your lived experiences and teaching us what it means to be authentic. And I want to encourage every one of our staff to use their authenticity and to really use this weekend and time afterwards to advocate on all these trans issues that we are all better educated about now than we were before. The challenge to us is how do we use the activism in our own office and our own forum in the work that we do every day, in the building of community within our offices, to really create a welcoming and safe environment for all our LGBTQ staff and clients and friends and colleagues and parents and siblings, because that is just the right thing to do and that's what we have to do. So thank you so much. I want to take a minute to thank all the people on the committee who put this together: Danielle King, Drina, Bellamy, Jared for speaking and introducing, Maria Garcia, Marlon, who you've also met here, Pat, Beth, Shivani Alamo, and Zamir Bendan. You all did a great job, and Jason for your help in arranging everything, and this was really, really fabulous. So thank you so much. Thank you, Stefanie.